Tony, as you know, at Real Story Group, we've been getting a lot of questions about, I'll call it one of the new fashionable vendors in the marketplace, and that's Slack. But one of the things that I think we're being asked to delve in on is Slack truly enterprise ready?
Yeah, I volunteered to take a yes on this, which is a little bit ironic because we published a 16-page detailed evaluation of Slack and concluded that it's not enterprise ready for a number of reasons, including scale, persistence, search, failures at some big customers like Uber. It does get a lot of street cred because thought leaders use it a lot, but still we do see some enterprise adoptions, particularly some teams, and it's helped inspire for us a new evaluation criteria, in fact a whole new scenario called team communications. And so I think one of the lessons here is that not all enterprise software needs to be enterprise-wide, even though you can get obviously network effects. But there's a couple interesting ways of looking at this, and if you advance forward, Jared, we'll show you a slide this is a screenshot from our Real Quadrant tool, which is a dynamic quadrant generator that takes the scenarios that are important to you and certain strategic criteria and dynamically generates a traditional kind of marketplace quadrant. And so if we set this up where team communications, if we're like a small consulting firm or like an interactive agency, and team communication across multiple overlapping projects is our #1 social collaboration scenario, and Slack, not surprisingly, emerges in the top right quadrant. But what if we change the emphasis on it? So what I did was go into this tool and say, okay, let's look at more prosaic forms of collaboration that are more knowledge management related, knowledge bases, repeatable, external collaboration, so forth. Then Slack falls into the lower left quadrant, and what some people call the loser quadrant. And there with Microsoft, in that case, is Yammer, which falls similar to Slack in terms of the scenario fit, but a little bit lower in strategic considerations because Yammer's ecosystem is not quite as vibrant as Slack's. But you get the idea here. So how there's different strokes for different folks, and different vendors have different strengths and weaknesses in different scenarios they target, and Slack targets an important scenario, including a scenario for a certain subset of users in large enterprises.
Diane?
Yeah, so this is an interesting topic, given that Slack is coming from essentially out of nowhere to becoming one of the hottest topics in collaboration. 2 years ago, I was being asked, how do I get more from my enterprise social network? That was being asked by CIOs and IT leaders. Then last year, basically all I was asked about was, what are we going to do about Slack? And we saw this coming in broadly in our organizations. But when we look at what Slack does, and I really like. I think it shows that there is still room for new collaborative improvements. I mean, I get emails every week about some new collaboration tool out there. I can't believe the amount of interest there is in trying to keep entering this space. There are hundreds and hundreds of offerings out there, but Slack has risen to the top for a number of reasons. One is this, giving you one place to do your work, and all your apps and data are there with you. That's immensely valuable. It's been, a promise since the open social days. But it was never successfully realized. Slack has figured that out. So they've brought real innovation to the table. But in terms of what you need for a real knowledge-centric organization, they're coming, but lack of threaded conversations and other basic features for you to do really structured work, lightly structured collaboration that's really conversational. You can't go deep on Slack. I mean, everyone talks about how it's great because it's so efficient. You just type these very short comments. It's almost like Twitter, in that you tend to use for very short bits of knowledge and working with your application. And I love the bots and all the things. I mean, I use Slack myself. But what stands out is I can't do real knowledge work in Slack, and I don't see other people are able to do it either. And that's what we hear consistently over and over again is it's great for notifications and for this integration, but it doesn't scale up. It doesn't have the features that you need for real knowledge management, which in large organizations, these large complex companies, need tools that understand how they work, what they do, and can reflect that. And we see that the design of the more mature enterprise social networks are really able to support those use cases and those capabilities, and Slack just wasn't even designed for that. Despite that, it's a very successful team tool. So if you don't have too many people, and you're not trying to do sophisticated knowledge management, it works great. We see this in development teams and support groups, at sales teams to a lesser extent. But it's very real, and I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. And I think there is room. I think Tony mentioned this. There's room for more than one tool in the organization. Use the right tool for the job, and I'm a big believer that there is competitive advantage to be had for that. And so the future is not going to be either or. You're not going to move wholeheartedly onto Slack for everything. You're going to have a more multi-layered collaboration strategy. And you'll need to have clear communications about when and where these tools should be used, but that's the inevitable future we clearly see.
Yeah, Diane, I'm really glad you mentioned the Slack user interface, because I don't think people talk about it enough. It's almost like a command line prompt interface, which is great if you're digital native and this is the world you can live in. But for everyone else, I don't know. It's a little bit more of a leap. So I think that it happens to be a niche product among a very noisy and very socially active constituency.
Yep, well said.